None of us. All right, none of us did. Why is that? On the one hand, it's because parents don't want to see their 8-year-old defecating. But on the other hand, it's also because our little imitations are a pale reality of the grittiness of the story of the Gospels. And back then, Jesus wasn't in a little warm stable with fluffy white sheep. It was hard and it was cold, and it was smelly and it was a mess. And Christmas, so often we do get a little bit romantic about it, and we sing songs like, I'm dreaming of a white Christmas. I love that song. I am dreaming of a white Christmas, but it hasn't happened to me yet. And actually, the reality of Christmas is so often different from the romantic picture of it. It involves stress, it involves broken down family relationships, it involves mess. And it's the same with life, isn't it? Don't all of us have dreams about what life could be, what it should be, things we're going to do, joy, laughter, friendship, purpose. And yet so often it can be aimless and lonely and painful. But what the story of Jesus says, the story of Christmas, is that when God came, normally when royalty's born, Hello magazine are there. And they take a few photos and it's all airbrushed and it looks nice and it's in a palace or something like that. Well, actually, Jesus didn't come to be born in a palace. He came to be born in a crappy stable. And what does that say? It says he comes to identify with the mess of our lives. And in that mess, he brings new life. And you might say, yeah, well, fine, all right. Let's say God does come. Let's say he does want to know me. Let's say he doesn't just want to know me, he wants to know everything about me, all my mess. What's the catch? Because there's no such thing as a free lunch, is there? Honestly, I promise, if some of us went outside now and we started trying to give £20 notes to people, try and give somebody a £20 note, watch this, they're like, whoa, what do you do? Where's the catch with this £20 note? People don't like free gifts, and we wonder about Christmas, well, what is the catch with this Christmas thing, with this Jesus thing? Honestly, there really, really isn't a catch. There really isn't. Jesus comes and he's a gift of grace. Grace. That word. It's so hard to explain it. It's so hard to break it down into a formula. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to tell a story. And this is a true story. Under 20 years ago, apartheid was still happening in South Africa. And apartheid was kind of a period of racial segregation and tension, and people were treated atrociously for the colour of their skin. And when Nelson Mandela came to power in South Africa, he brought in something called the Truth and Reconciliation Committee. And the idea of this committee was that policemen or army people could go to the committee and they could confess the crimes that they'd done under apartheid to the people they'd done them to. And there's one particular scene, it's a true story, one particular scene where there's a middle-aged white policeman in the dock, and there's an elderly black woman sitting across from him, and the courtroom is full of people, and there's a judge presiding. And the court listened as this middle-aged white policeman confesses the crimes that he did to this elderly black lady. And he begins by saying, under apartheid, me and my mates who were in the police, we went round to this woman's house, and we took her 18-year-old boy, and we shot him. And then we burned him, turning him like a piece of meat on the barbecue, so that we could destroy him. He went on. 8 years later, we went back to that same woman's house, and we forced her to watch as we took her husband. And we tied him to some planks of wood. We poured gasoline all over his body, and we burned him alive. And there was silence in the courtroom. And the judge turned to this old woman. And he said, what would you want? What do you want from Mr. Van der Beek? The old woman paused for a moment, and she looked at him across the room. The man had done this to her, broken her family, destroyed her life. And then she said, I want 3 things from Mr. Van der Beek. Number 1, I want him to take me to the place where he burnt my husband, so that we can gather up the dust and give him a proper burial. Number 2, Mr. Van der Beek has taken away from me my son and my husband, but I still have a lot of love to give. So I would like for him to visit me twice a month in the ghetto, so that I can cook for him and I can be a mother to him. And number 3, said the old woman, she slowly got to her feet. I would like to embrace Mr. Van der Beek so that he knows that I forgive him and God forgives him. Now at that point, Mr. Van der Beek was so overcome that he fainted. And as the old woman hobbled across the court, the crowd around spontaneously began to sing, "Amazing grace, how sweet the sound, that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found, was blind, but now I see." That's grace. See, Mr. Van der Beek had never earned that. He could never have earned that forgiveness, and yet he got it because she gave it to him for free. Christianity, so often we can think it's about trying to be good in order to earn our way into heaven. But it's not. It's a free gift. It's grace. All this stuff which we have about Action Week and about how we want to love the world this Christmas is not so that we can walk around with our heads up our own arses feeling good about ourselves. It's a response. All it is a response. It's like, how could we not give when we've received this? That's all it is. There is no catch to Christmas. And the question that always arises in my mind when I get to this stage is, all right, well, let's say it's true. Let's say just for 1 second it's true. All we need to do is switch on the TV and we see that the world is a broken place. All we need to do is examine our own lives and we can see the blows that life has dealt us. The fact that actually we're hurt and we're a bit broken. And actually, if we're honest, we've caused others pain as well. Why would God do that? Why? I wouldn't have done it. And there's another story that I heard from a friend of mine whose mate is a dad, and he's got a little daughter. And the thing about this little daughter, she had a favourite toy, and rather than being like a normal kind of like plastic doll, she had a porcelain doll, which was kind of like a china thing. And this was her favourite toy. So every day, the parents would take the toy down from the mantelpiece and they would give it to the daughter, and she'd play with it for a little bit, and then they'd put it back up there so it wouldn't get broken. Well, one day, Daddy and his daughter were having a pillow fight. Daddy had his pillow, and he pulled it right back so he could give his daughter a good smack in the face. And as he did that, he knocked the porcelain doll and started to topple. And the way he tells the story, she kind of went into slow motion, and the two of them were like, no, as the door slowly fell and then smashed. And the daughter started crying, and Daddy said, I'm so sorry, I'll buy you a new one. Daddy's got a credit card. And the daughter said, I don't want a new one, I want that one. She pointed to the broken pieces. And so Daddy got out the super glue. And he kind of brushed all the pieces back together, and he took it into the kitchen and spent 4 hours trying to super glue this porcelain doll back together. And eventually, he gave it back to her, and it was rubbish. And he said, I'm so sorry I've broken it, I'll buy you a new one. And she said, I don't want a new one. And he said, but darling, this one's broken. And then she said, just because she's broken doesn't mean I can't love her. This £10 note has been screwed up, spat on, snotted on. The value of this £10 note has not changed. Just because we're a bit messed up, just because we've been spat on or we've spat on other people, our value to God never, ever change. Just because we're broken doesn't mean He can't love us. And the story of Christmas is that God comes Himself to tell us He wants a relationship with us. This is a picture of who He is. So the question I just want to leave you with, the choir stand to sing Our Holy Night, is God wants to get to know you this Christmas. You want to get to know